everybody, and welcome back to our weekly Dr. Stone discussion, and this week we are talking about episode 19, To Modernity. Side note, I just learned this about myself, but I can't say the word modernity. Modernity. Jeez. Before we get into today's video proper though, I do want to give a big thank you to those of you who shared last week's video over on Twitter, at Morgan Boyer Poet, at Nacho Gashardo, and at Harrison K VGC. Thanks so much for sharing last week's video, you three, and if you would like to have your name shouted out in next week's video, then be sure to share this video around on the internet, and then tag me at JoJo Talks Too Much over on Twitter, and I will be sure to shout your name out in next week's Dr. Stone video. Now, with that said, in this week's episode, we finally get to take a look at the Kingdom of Strength, or whatever it is that Tsukasa's calling his kingdom, the Kingdom of Might. I don't remember. All Might? The Kingdom of All Might? I would live there. But we get to take a look at Tsukasa's kingdom, and honestly, it sucks. And I don't mean in terms of like, oh, that's lame, I don't like this show is bad. I mean, like, I would never live in Tsukasa's kingdom, not even, first of all, he wouldn't pick me anyway, so I don't even know what I'm talking about. But yeah, like, I would hate being in Tsukasa's kingdom. That sucks. And he's treating it like a paradise, and Hyoga, like his new second in command, is like, yeah, this place is great. That place sucks, man. Like, what about that place is even remotely nice? Like, there's nothing about it that's pleasant or like livable. I would hate that place straight up. Then again, though, that is what Tsukasa wanted. Like, that is basically the kingdom that he was proposing, a kingdom where only the strongest survive, a battle of the fittest, and it's just, I don't like anything about it. Like, the way that they, like, live in the side of a mountain, and they have to go, like, they're, like, hunting for food, and, like, it's all just, it's a little too barbarian-y for me, which I find really funny, given that these guys called our group cavemen at one point, and it's like, no, they actually live in huts and are embracing science, and even before Senku showed up, they were 10 times more civilized than Tsukasa's group, so the idea that they were referring to them as cavemen is really telling, because I really do think, like, these guys, because they're physically fit, they really do feel as though they are so much more impressive than the quote-unquote cavemen, because they come from our era, even though they would never admit that to Tsukasa. These guys would never say, like, well, we're better because we came from a kingdom of science. But they're pretending like they're better, calling them cavemen and stuff like that. And it just sort of blew my mind, because I'm like, you guys are the cavemen. You're the ones living at the side of a mountain. You're the ones hunting for food and basically following the leader and not really having any kind of end goal in sight. Like, to me, that was mind-numbing. And yeah, I would never live in Tsukasa's kingdom. I still find the whole concept of the kingdom interesting and fascinating. But to, like, if you had to pick, I would love to know that in the comments. Although I feel like I know what everyone's gonna say. But yeah, where would you rather live? Would you rather live in Ishigami Village, or would you rather live in Tsukasa's kingdom? Like, I think the answer is blatantly obvious, but I would love to hear your guys' opinion on that, because honestly, yeah, I love Tsukasa to pieces. I think he's the most interesting villain, or at least one of the more interesting villains from this season. But yeah, I disagree with a lot of things that he does, including how he runs his kingdom. I will say though, meeting Hyoga, like seeing how Hyoga and Tsukasa meet is, or at least I'm assuming how they, the bare minimum how they meet in the stone world. For all I know, they could have met previously, because they are familiar with each other, so maybe they did meet in our world at some point. But when they meet up in the stone world, their reaction to each other is interesting to see, because Tsukasa just immediately knows that Hyoga is like a badass, and essentially just feeds his men to Hyoga, like, yeah, sure, sorry that I didn't bring enough men for a fitting warm-up for you. And I was like, geez, my guy is tough as nails if that's a warm-up. I do really like Hyoga. I think he's interesting, mainly because he's basically just a version of Tsukasa who uses like a spear But at the same time, he's just kind of neat. His character design is badass. His demeanor is badass. He's basically just like, yeah, he's just Tsukasa with a spear, but a little bit more quiet, a little bit more reserved. And Tsukasa already is pretty reserved, so that's saying something. I do like that they have this sort of, they're like an inverted Senku and Taiju, which is important given that Taiju and Yuzuriha do sort of make an appearance in this week's episode. It's more of a mention, but they do try to tie those two together, and that's the vibe that I was getting, that the pair of them are meant to be a sort of dark mirror for Taiju and Senku. Now, that's probably not correct, and maybe not what the mangaka was going for, or the writer was going for, but that's what I took away from it. And I think comparing them to our boys is really... It just makes the battle between the two kingdoms all the more interesting, because it's not necessarily that Tsukasa and Hyoga are trying to set out to be evil. It's simply that these are two groups, 4 people who are similar in a lot of ways, but very much different in a whole heap of others. And it's more of a battle of ethics and a battle of how to live than it is like, oh, you're encroaching on my land. And Tsukasa in particular would hate that crap. Like, he is not about going back to like land ownership and money and all that. And on that hand, I do sort of respect what he's doing with the kingdom. I can understand from that concept, because nobody likes like the man, quote unquote, not Becky Lynch. I'm talking about like the man. Nobody likes big government. Nobody likes big like big money, like big fat cats running the world. Nobody likes that stuff. We can all agree on that. But at the same time, I would never live there, because Tsukasa's version of like, yeah, we got to make sure that the people are in charge is like, everybody just fends for themselves, but you also like listen to me. And it's like, okay, whatever you say, big guy. So while I may not want to live there, I do find the kingdom to be kind of fascinating, just as like a physical representation of what Tsukasa was after. The kingdom is really interesting in that sense. The rest of the episode, however, like the first battle, both the continuation of the first battle plus the wrap up of it, it's really good with the exception of that girl. Now, I don't know anything about this character. I don't read the manga. I'm not a manga person. I really have no interest. But this character design is like a big yikes from me. And you know what? It all comes down to this, and I'm sure people are going to be upset with me. It looks like she's in a persistent state of like taking an Instagram picture. Like she just has like, because it'd be different if she had like I don't care if she has like the sort of puckered lips, because a lot of other characters in this show have that, and I think their character designs are fantastic. But here, they purposely drew her mouth so that her mouth is open, so she's making like an O, like lip thing the entire time on purpose. So I have to, judging off the character design, I have to assume that her mouth is like she's breathing like this the whole time, and it just looks goofy. Like, I really don't like that character design, and it took me right out of what should have been a really intense moment, the burning down of Ishigami Village, like both the bridges and the huts themselves. So yeah, like that character design, I'm sure people are gonna be upset with me, but I really didn't like that character design at all. I thought it's not even so much like the clothes, but even then, like the all pink look. Now listen, pink is a great color and not used enough in character design, but man, that is too much. You can have too much of a good thing. And yeah, this girl's character design, I was not on board for. I'm not interested in this character based off solely her design. But if you take that character out of it, the whole like burning down of Ishigami Village, like this village that we've known for several episodes now, like we've been in Ishigami Village for a long time. Seeing it burn down and the panic and the confusion, it was genuinely palpable. Like I was genuinely like worried that we were going to forever lose Ishigami Village. But they do say like we can always rebuild. Like it's fine. Like it's not like they burnt the whole thing down to cinder. They did burn it, but we can rebuild and it'll be okay. So I was like, oh, okay, good. That's because for a moment I genuinely thought we lost it, and they have to like retreat to the science shack as they call it. And it does lead to a great moment for Suika, who is smart enough to think on her toes and overhearing what the baddies are planning to grab a kid. She's like, oh, okay, well, I know that I can lure them away, and I'll lure them up to the hot springs and then come back. But Senku realizes that that's not a great idea because the way the winds are picking up, where they found I don't remember what it's called, but where they found the acid that they needed, all that poisonous gas, that's where Suika is heading, and she has no idea. And for a moment, I'm like, well, Suika's dead. Like, Suika's gonna die. I kind of knew they weren't gonna kill her, but for a brief second, I was like, well, Suika's dead. But I was genuinely still shocked by the fact that we get to see the return of Mother Nature herself. And that moment where she almost takes Suika is frightening. Like, anytime that they draw Mother Nature, I'm like, oh yeah, she's scary. And again, Senku brings up something that he brought up the episode that we see Mother Nature in, and that's that she isn't friend or foe. She's entirely indifferent. So if you know how to play Mother Nature, you can easily come out the victor, and that's what Senku does in order to end up winning the first battle between the Kingdom of Science versus the Kingdom of Might or whatever. And I do consider that a win. Like the Kingdom of Science won that first battle because they were able to use their environment to their advantage, and they were the ones who ended up walking away safe, and they lost they had no casualties in that entire battle. So they walked away, in my opinion, the victors, even though Ishigami Village burned down. Because when it comes to Hyoga and his group, he straight up kills his own men to test out if the smoke is real, which to me was like, I was like, can't you just hit one of them? You just killed all of them instead? Like, that seems excessive. But I was like, all right, whatever, like that's fine. So yeah, we see the end of the first battle, and it's a victory for the Kingdom of Science, for Ishigami Village. And I was pretty happy with that outcome. Again, I do think that Hyoga went a little bit overboard by killing all his men just to test the smoke. I feel like he could have just had one of the men just like kick the weak link off, but maybe that's just me. Anyway, yeah, so I thought that was rather interesting, and I think the most interesting part of the episode, and I'm sure the part of the episode that everybody else also probably loved, was the straight up mention of not only cellular devices, which I was like, really, we're gonna get cell phones? That's kind of neat, but a straight up shout out to Taiju and Yuzuriha, something that I've been waiting for ages, and I was happy to see them, but we still don't, it's not like we actually get to see them make their grand return to the series. It's just a mention, because they need somebody on the inside. They need to give them a phone so that they can like be the spy within and call to the Kingdom of Science to say where the Kingdom of Might is weakest, where the Tsukasa Empire is at its weakest, so that they can attack there and then completely dismantle them. And that is both genius and also just hype-inducing, because it just like, it got me so excited to reunite with Taiju and Yuzuriha, because I've been asking for this for like a while now. You guys know, like, I love those characters, and I've genuinely missed them. I want to see them come back sooner rather than later. Again, I do think that they're probably gonna save it for like a big reveal, either towards the end of towards the finale, like maybe like an episode or two before, or at the finale itself. Either way, I'm really excited to see those two return. Really curious to see what Yuzuriha is supposed to be working on. Maybe it was cell phones to begin with. I don't know. Either way, I'm excited, and this was a generally pretty good episode, honestly. With that said, everybody, I'd wrap up my thoughts on this week by giving it a very solid B. This is a good time. I didn't enjoy it quite as much as the last few episodes of Dr. Stone, but it was still very enjoyable. And on that note, everybody, that's going to wrap up today's video. But before we take off, I want to give a big shout out to the good folks over on Patreon, namely those in the Earl Grey tier: Calvin Atkinson, Crowbar of Irony, Dominic, Urza, Ginkotaku, No For Nothing, Maria Teresa, Mirth Mouser, Omder Garamond, Cell, Shadow Creative, Sipco Games, Somastan, Steven, Tristan, Verdon, and Westbourne Eastbred. A huge thank you to those of you who support the channel over on Patreon, and if you too would like to join the T Squadron, then be sure to check out that first link in the description to check out our Patreon page, see all the cool rewards you can get over there, as well as access to our Patreon exclusive Discord. Thanks once again for checking out today's video, everybody. If you enjoyed it, then you've probably been on the internet long enough to know what to do already, so I ain't gonna tell you, but I will say that it is appreciated. And if you are feeling stressed out today, then you go have yourself a warm cup of tea, and I will talk to you all again real soon.